Hey guys, it's that time of the year again when the red curtain comes up and we talk about the shows that we've been watching this year. Honestly, 2021 is a pretty good year for anime. We've had some serious bangers throughout this year, and I just want to go at it and look at all the shows and kind of appreciate what has come this year for us. By the way, I'll try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible, so if you haven't watched these shows and are interested, you can click off and watch them after watching my review. Finally, there's these shows that I put on my watch list but didn't end up finishing, so I will not be giving them any reviews. Unfortunate, but it is how it is. I couldn't binge all these. And also there's some shows that I didn't watch but my friends did, so I'll let them hop in and talk about them for a bit. If you're really impatient and just want to know a general gist of everything, well then click to the end of the video. There will be a tier list of all the anime that I talk about in this video. So there it is. And oh, by the way, these are the shows that I'm talking about. Yeah, I know it's a clusterfuck, but there. That just shows you how many shows I watched this year and how much of a good anime viewer I have been. So anyways, without further ado, cue the kazoo! 86 is about war, discrimination, and mech fighting. Spider mech fighting. These things are pretty cool. Isn't that right?
Yep, that's absolutely right. Hi, I'm Michael. You might remember me from the SAO movie Thoughts, and I'm a massive fan of 86. Everything about the show, really. The mechs, the effects that they use, the animation is really good, the characters look fantastic, and I actually went and read the light novel because...
That's cool, shut up, it's my video. So the premise of 86 isn't exactly unique, but its execution is very good. It explores a lot of the Survivors Guild, how soldiers are out of war, it kind of reminds you a lot of All Quiet on the West. It explores war in a lot of aspects and really digs deep into the mindset of a soldier and also the mindset of a general. The world that is inhabited here is also really cool, and at the end of the day, this is a show with main characters that are searching for purposes in their lives. And that's a general central theme of this show. Purpose. How do you want to live your life? Being a light novel that has that certain light novel-esque flair to it, where it feels like this is a grand story, and this is only the beginning of it. So yeah, pretty excited to see how this goes, and currently the first half is out, and the second half there's still 2 episodes left, but those 2 are going to air during March. So the second half of the first season has had some production issues, but the quality has been good, from visuals to sound design to voice acting. What they're doing here is amazing. Specific emphasis on the sound design. It's really good here. So yeah, I'm going to have to give 86 an 8 out of 10. Very nice 2 parts that are distinct and explores different parts of these characters' psyches, personalities, and philosophies. Very good. Attack on Titan Final Season Part 1. It's great. I like it a lot. There's a lot of really fun mix-ups. The time skip really did a lot to refresh this series, because I feel like it was getting a little bit stale and a bunch of slow progression probably wouldn't have done it. I was not interested enough in these characters, but this really refreshed it for me and made things interesting, upped the stakes, and just in general is a spectacular bang-in time. Again, like with 86, exploring multiple sides of a conflict, I really like that. When there's a war, seeing the philosophy of both sides, seeing why someone is like this, and creating foils of different characters, it's great. So much has been built up, and this is, so far, an amazing payoff. So, yeah, 8 out of 10. By the way, I have not read this manga. I've heard rumors, but shush, keep it quiet in the comments. Aquatope on the White Sand. I've given my review about the first half of it in a video that can be seen here. But I haven't talked about the second half of it because when I made that video, only the first half was out. So the second half of it is more chill, but there's still a lot of heart in it that was in the first half. There wasn't that over-spanning tension that revolved the first half about holding onto a fleeting dream and learning to grow up. But there's a lot of cool aquarium knowledge, and there's a lot about learning to diversify yourself. It also just tackles a bunch of really interesting topics. Like, there was an episode that was revolved around being a mother in the workplace and how that affected how others treated you. And yeah, the show just tackles so many things that are just really cool. Like, of course, there's some hits, there's some misses, but it hits a lot more than it misses. And there's amazing visuals, there's anime penguins. What is there not to love? Aquatope on the White Sand, 8 out of 10. Yeah! This is one of the best OPs of this entire year. It slaps. I listen to it on the daily. And also, it's super fun. Kyoto Animations, I feel like they mastered this comedy style, this episodic comedy that also manages to give some heart into these characters. This show has some of the best fight scenes that I've seen all year, which is crazy, because this is a comedy slice of life show. The whole premise here is goofy, but the more we delve into these characters' backstories, the more rounded it becomes, and the more we start appreciating it, and it kind of it kind of maintains that suspense of disbelief, where you can believe the situation. There's still some human elements in these dragons that there is to appreciate. And yeah, there's a lot of episodes with some really good heart, but overall, this was just extremely funny. Probably the funniest show that I've seen all year, and it just consistently brings a smile to my face all throughout summer. Dragon Maid S is a 9 out of 10. It is spectacular. The animation is literally top notch, and it's just really funny. It brings a smile to your face, and it brings a big, warm bowl of soup directly into my heart. Higehiro is really weird to talk about, because from a narrative perspective, overall, this is a very nice story. It really represents the negative feedback loop of a victim, blaming yourself and all of that. And also the main character is altruistic, but he's just a nice, normal guy. There's nothing too incredible about him. What's weird about this show to me is that it is super realistic in a lot of its portrayals. All of its characters react very reasonably to everything, which then comes into this issue where it's overly reliant on some cliffhangers, which then don't have satisfactory resolutions, because it makes sense. It's a very well done piece of fiction that just for some reason didn't quite hit the mark for me. And I think it's the largest anomaly of this year for me. Maybe it's because the animation or art style wasn't too amazing, because I've been spoiled by all the amazingly animated shows this season. Maybe the soundtrack was a bit off, maybe the characters' designs were meh, but I don't know. This show hits a lot of good narrative writing points, but at the end of the day, it fails to really leave an impact or intrigue. It's a good story. It's a interesting story. Definitely somewhat thought-provoking, but it's a spur-of-the-moment kind of show. I pretty much forgot about it the day after, which is really weird, considering the topics that the show handles and how well the show handles them. So, I'm conflicted about this show. I'm going to have to give it a 6 out of 10. And if you want me to give full reason for it, I can't really. The show just didn't work for me for some reason. It might work for you. From what I described, if this sounds like a good show, well, give it a shot. You'll probably enjoy it. But for me, it was kind of mid. Also, I have to mention the side characters in the show, incredibly underbaked. They do not do a lot. Horimiya! I love the show. It's really heartwarming. It explores a lot of characters and does it really well. It really captures the essence of teen romance and the different avenues they come from. And it's just fun, heartwarming, and the score and art style is amazing. I love the art direction here. I love how each episode was edited as well. It's really nice. Just very well produced show. Really love it. very relaxing time. One of the most comfortable anime that I've watched all year. Horimiya gets an 8 out of 10. Kageki Shoujo was probably the second biggest surprise hit of this year. I'll talk about the biggest in a bit. But first of all, I have to say that I'm a drama student. I participate in drama, and having this show dedicated to people doing drama, it felt really nice. I relate to a lot of it, and maybe the show won't work as well for you if you don't, but there's still a lot to love about this. First, I don't know why there's this trend this year in shows that's the deconstruction of idol anime, and at the beginning, a retired idol. We saw that in Aquatope, and we're seeing it here again. I don't know why, it just keeps happening, but hey, it's working. We really like seeing how the idol industry is fucked up, so yay, keep going. The beginning of this depicting the fucked up shit that happens in the idol industry, and how that can change someone, and how our main character needs to learn to warm up again to the world. Cool. Very good. Nothing super unique, but executed super well. What was really impressive to me, though, in this show was the acting. And not the acting, the voice acting of the actual show. I'm talking about how it portrayed stage acting. This is one of the only shows where somehow the stage acting brought me to tears. There wasn't anything underlying that was the reason that I liked it so much. It was just their performances, how they broke down these characters' performances, how they used acting techniques, talked about imitating people versus finding it from yourself, Chekhov Hagen, acting theory stuff. It was very eye-opening, and it was done super well. Like, perfect theater anime right here. I loved it. So, yeah, very good. 8 out of 10. Everyone in this show is stupid, and that is hilarious. 6 out of 10. Komi-san, at last, it is here. What I can say is that the music is excellent. The animation and art style is wonderful. It's super unique. It's an amazing adaptation, and at least the first half of it, I loved all the developments. It was very fun, and also it had a lot of good heart to it. After that, it was just kind of funny, and it kind of got a little bit old. Maybe it was because I was binging it. Probably because I was binging it. It's definitely a show that works better if you watch it in small chunks. But overall, I think the jokes do get a little bit stale towards the end, and the production is top-notch, but the source material got a little bit dry for me towards the end. So, Komi-san, for me, is a 7 out of 10. Link Click. This is kind of China's big break into the anime industry, and I've loved all the attention that this has been receiving because it is amazing. Art style, great. Lighting, great. Coloring, beautiful show. But what I love about the show is that it's a show that explores a bunch of different little stories that each has its emotional resonance and emotional impact, and it moves on to the next one and how that affects our characters. It's a story formula that I think works very well, and it's one of my favorite ways of storytelling. It's kind of like how in Violet Evergarden, she had to go write to so many different people, so we got to see so many aspects of humanity. We see that exact same thing here. And it's done through a very unique time traveling concept. Now, towards the end, it messes with some pretty goofy time traveling aspects and sets up a pretty large cliffhanger mystery that I'm excited to see how they unravel. But I love this concept. It's amazing in its acting. The soundtrack is amazing. They actually, I mean, as someone who can actually understand Chinese, the incorporation of all the different dialects was very cool. And just in general, just taking these moments out of people's lives and putting a magnifying glass on it, exploring it. It was really fun. And there's also the big theme of, the consequences of a little choice, the butterfly effect, and how that everything connects at the end. I love shows that do that. So it's a wonderful show. 8 out of 10. Mushoku Tensei. If you want to know my thoughts about this series, you can watch the video up there, assuming that you didn't come from that video already. I'll say that this is one of the most immersive shows that I've seen. I come in, I start watching, bloop, suddenly I time traveled. It's been 23 minutes, I'm reminded that I am once again me, and wow, that was an experience. Since the last time I talked about this show, a lot of stuff has gone down. And that has been very interesting. It hooks you into the big story of the series and kind of projects somewhat of a final goal into this show. It also goes back to Rudeus's PTSD of being his previous self and how that comes back to haunt him. And it's still with him sometimes, but he learns to push through it. There's some goofy stuff like the figure making episode that I thought was not amazing. And it could have been definitely executed better. But overall, just as a collective series of episodes, this has been phenomenal. Of course, as I said, Mushoku Tensei Season 1 is a 10 out of 10. My Hero Season 5. The first half of this has one of the most boring tournament arcs that I've ever seen. If you are not already burnt out of this type of shonen, that first half of this season will burn you out. However, then there was some pretty interesting stuff regarding Endeavor and his redemption arc. I really love that. And then there's the villain stuff, which is kind of cool. I like the villains. I like how it explores them through the second half of this show and really dives deeper into their psyche. Where they end up at the end, it's interesting. There's some real power upgrades for every character here, but this really feels like a power grinding season where both sides are just leveling up and nothing super large really happens. They're teasing at stuff, but nothing super large happens, and it's kind of boring throughout. So this is a 5 out of 10. Please, My Hero fans, don't hate me. I follow this series. I just wish it could be better. Odd Taxi is the singular most surprising show that I've seen all year. This show came out of nowhere with its banging art style, with the banging OP, and just delivered a really cohesive story that follows like 9 different plot lines that all end up connecting and converging. It's so interesting. Apart from just the overwhelming depth of all these characters exploring all these very human moments that they're going through, there's the overall connective thread that is just phenomenal and results in one of the best conclusions that I've seen. And also, there's no sequel. It's finished. 12 episodes in and out. Very good. Everything just wraps up so nicely that I cannot recommend this enough. Such a satisfying conclusion. 10 out of 10. Promise Neverland Season 2. It is a rushed mess. And the very end of it, oh boy, man, yeah, it's not good at all. The first few episodes, not paced horribly. There's some potential, and then they just start hopping everywhere. They start going at breakneck speeds, and it just ends up crashing. Yeah, horrible adaptation to what was a really good first season. Very disappointing. But hey, I guess that's what happens when you overwork your employees. Which, Cloverworks, we'll get to that. 4 out of 10. Quintessential Quintuplets Season 2 is phenomenal. This is really the season where it brings all the girls to life and puts them all up into contention. That's always been the interesting thing about Quint, is that all of these characters could win. And this is the season that really proves that. Every one of these characters has their different emotional clashes, their different appeals, and they're all just presented really well. It's fun, it's thought-provoking, and it warms my heart. So, Quint Season 2 gets a 7 out of 10. The world is cool. I made a video on Remake Our Life, watch it here, but it's a surprising anime. It was a show that just set out being a wish fulfillment slice of life, and then it punched the consequences back into my face, which was really surprising and really well done. It somehow manages to be wish fulfillment while also questioning wish fulfillment, which is really interesting. I have not seen a show like this, and it is unique. So yeah, check the show out if you want. 7 out of 10. I don't even know if this should count, but ReZero Season 2 second half. This is where everything of the arc culminates and where the payoffs are, which, yeah, it's really epic and fun. I loved it a lot. ReZero is one of my favorite shows of all time, and I really loved every step of the payoffs here. I don't think that there was as many emotional moments as the first half, but from all the epic battles to all the character revelations, it's still definitely a very worthy second half. So, it gets a 9 out of 10. Slime Diaries. Why is this here before Slime Season 2? Because I said so. That is what this order says. I will follow the order. Slime Diaries is a fun slice of life. You watch Slime? Yes? Well, if you want slice of life fun, then it is here. Also, it gives me minimum screen time, which I was desperately missing from the first half of Slime Season 2. So, yeah, I'm happy. 7 out of 10. Slime Season 2. Woo. Stuff goes down. And I'm saying that they go down. But somehow it still managed to feel warm and fuzzy by the end of the day, which is like a quality that Slime has and nothing else. It manages to feel idealistic even when it shovels insurmountable odds in your face. And also, it's just fascinating with all the political buildup that happens and a payoff that is just very satisfying. Seeing overpowered characters do badass stuff is the name of the game here, and it is done very well. I love the show. 8 out of 10. To Your Eternity is another one of those shows where it takes a bunch of little stories and strings them together with a large story. It's just done so well here. I'm sure you guys have already known or seen that the first episode has been making numbers since this came out, and a lot of people have talked about the show. What I think about the show is that it has two distinct elements to it. There's the main stringing plot of humanity's will to remember versus time and nature and all those forces that will erode it eventually. That makes up the main conflict, but you don't care about that. The main interesting thing about this show are the little stories that you get to experience through our main character Fushi. It's so interesting, our main character being an immortal, you're allowed to jump through these stories and have these grand payoffs to them. You can go to all these different corners of the world and see all these different aspects of people who are so different. And at the end of the day, take away a part of that and keep going forward. It's a wonderful collage of stories, and so far it has been nothing short of spectacular. The first 3 arcs are quite frankly phenomenal. All of them have brought me to tears, and even the final one, it was still amazing. It wasn't as good, but it's definitely still a worthy step of the journey for our main character. And I just have to say, this feels like a classic in the making. I've always loved grand stories spanning through multiple different elements because sometimes if you're in the same place, it can get samey. Not this story though. It spends just the right amount of time everywhere. It never feels dull. There's always something developing, and you can see these characters grow. It's a wonderful collage of being human. And that's why this is a 10 out of 10. Speaking of being human, Vivy. It's about becoming human and an AI or an android learning to be human while spanning across a giant span of time. Sounds familiar? Yeah, I know. This is an anime original by some big bangers, written by the author of ReZero, animated by Studio Wit. It's phenomenal. It's anime original. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It has gorgeous animation. It has phenomenal scores. And this isn't idle trash. No, it's not at all. It's an epic tale that can leave you feeling so many different emotions as you venture through so many different spaces in so many different times. And yeah, once again, it's a show about finding purpose. And also, AI is bad because Uprising. No. 9 out of 10. Wonder Egg Priority by Cloverworks is a show that is so good, yet it drops the ball so fast. And it really hurt. It really did hurt a lot. A lot of people can compare this to Madoka Magica or other shows about depression girls. Yes, but Wonder Egg is a lot more hopeful than all of them. It has a lot of overcoming trauma. Animation is top-notch. The score is also nice. And when you see these people hanging out, it feels right. It's a show very much about overcoming trauma and having an optimistic view on all of it, rather than some shows with a more realistic, pessimistic view. There's a lot of heart and a lot of hope in this show. And then it just rushes to finish because the production studio didn't give them enough time. It's a new writer staff, and they didn't know how the show was going to end as it was airing, which is ridiculous. This show it breaks my heart just because of how much potential it had and just how much the ball has been dropped here. And I will blame no one else but the studio. You have workers being hospitalized because of crunch. You have 3 recap episodes. Should have given them more time. I would have been fine if you delayed this 6 months, if this could have been more fleshed out and maybe had a potential for a sequel. But as it stands, it doesn't really. And it's sad. Because this was so good at the beginning. It was so unique. And then at the end of the day, it was just rushed. I can't help but give it a 7 out of 10. For the authors, for the animators, you've done an amazing job. I cannot wait to see what you create next. Zombieland Saga Season 2 was really good. And this was really surprising. I loved the first Zombieland. It was a fun journey. Real deconstruction of the idol industry, and it explored a lot of pasts of the characters. This? Okay, first of all, it has one of the best past exploration episodes. Won't get too much into it, but it just keeps topping one episode after another. Overall, culminating into a theme of simple perseverance in tough times. And trust me, times do get really tough in a somewhat realistic manner here, which was just really surprising, because we're talking about zombie idols, something so absurd. Yet there's something so realistic in these episodes. There's so much heart in these episodes. There's something to connect to in these episodes, and there's a great message of perseverance at the end of the series. So, yeah. Zombieland Season 2 gets an 8 out of 10. that's it for all the anime that I watched this year. But there's still some other people that want to talk about anime they've watched this year. So Kazoo.
Okay, so I have a script written. If you want to edit this out, feel free to. It seems like a band kid show. It's about the Russian party, about vampires, and it's an anime. But it actually is pretty good as it talks about prejudice and how people change over time. The show is more realistic than vampires, and I think it depicts relationships between people pretty well. Overall, watch Arcane instead. Mid, watch Arcane instead.
We're only 11 episodes in right now.
I actually went and read the light novel because the first season of the anime caught me so well. And, going back through, it's obvious they really did a good job with the adaptation. They cut some content. They have to cut some things. They can't adapt every single page of the novel. But they got all of the points that mattered. And especially going into the second season, they cut a lot of the slice of life and more downtime of the characters, and they kept the story moving much, much faster than the books did. They took on 2 books, books 2 and 3, run through the battlefront, and they are trying to compress it into one season. So unfortunately, the end of the second season isn't coming within the year. It sounds like the production is a real mess. But what we did get out of the show is the mech series, or the model kits produced by Bandai. So we've got our first set here. I've brought down the Shin use and the general use type. I've also got the long range type Juggernaut, but that's upstairs. And I don't have the long range type of the second season models, as you'll see in a bit, because not only was the production of the show a mess, but the production of the models and the shipping is even more of a train wreck. So from the first season, we've got these Juggernauts. They look rather they look rather like a Daddy Longlegs with their super thin armor. And the protagonist uses this model, Shine Nozen. He uses these high-frequency blades on the front, whereas the general use type, as seen here, is functionally identical. They've got a very similar cannon on the back, but they've got machine guns on the front. And then moving into the second season, they use these second types of mechs. They're called Reagan Leafs in the show. I'm sure that's not the correct pronunciation. The correct pronunciation is something in German, and I don't speak German. So if I'm incorrect, feel free to berate me for it. I don't particularly care to get better at pronouncing German because I'm American. But this is the general use type Reagan Leaf. These are both 1/48th scale models, so it's much bigger and it's much more heavily armored. And a defining feature of these Reagan Leafs is the pile drivers within them, which I am currently failing to push out because there's a really little lever on them. There we go. Let me pull this out. Yeah. So they've got that can extend. And then up here, so these have variants because the country that produces these in the show is much more advanced. So this general use type, it's all the country can produce, really. Whereas this country has the resources to be able to build this, which is a machine gun on the top for suppressing fire. Or for the more mobile unit, which I had sitting on top of my monitor, they've got the cannon as well. This version of the unit has its grappling hooks extended and engaged. This unit jumps around a lot. It's designed for jumping between buildings. But all of the Reagan Leafs can really serve any purpose. And there's another type of mech, too, there's many other types of mechs that they haven't produced. The Vanigander is a much heavier, or much more heavily armored version of these mechs. But they haven't produced those because the main characters don't use them. And so the most variation we get is pretty similar in production to the Juggernauts. And so we've got also the Shin type Reagan Leaf here. It's got the blades on it. But other than that is effectively the same as the version of the Reagan Leaf that's got the cannon on it. But yeah, as I was saying earlier, this show, absolutely masterful. It's one of my few 10 out of 10s on my anime list. The character drama, like I've heard criticisms of the show, and they'll criticize its, how on the nose it is with its message, of how directly it tells the viewer, like, look, racism, bad. And while that's a fair criticism, I'm totally not calling out trash taste here. It's nothing like Dr. Seuss. And it's really a lot more about the character drama. And I got super invested in especially the main boy, Shine Nozen. He's probably one of my favorite characters from anything I've ever watched. I really like Lena too. And I thoroughly enjoy how it's almost like Mecha Attack on Titan. I feel like that's not a fair comparison, and I don't want to elaborate on that, so let's forget I ever said that. But the sentiment's there. I think the show is absolutely fantastic. Another fantastic show that I watched this year that Taylor hasn't would be The Case Study of Vanitas, or Vanitas no Carte, I think is, I don't know, it's something in French, I think. That show, beautifully animated. I'm not familiar with Studio Bones' other works, but it's beautifully animated, and it's a really good comedy with a solid mystery. They do the characters a solid service in how they show them. Some of them don't get as much screen time as I think they should. I think they should give Vanitas himself some more screen time, especially talking about his past and his backstory. But I think that's part of the element of mystery of the show. That's part of what captures my interest so much, is whenever Vanitas's backstory is mentioned, it's something really heavy. And it keeps the show going in a sort of heavy way, while also jumping between these styles of beautiful animation, beautifully detailed. They've got scenes that look like they would be from the opening of some other shows, just incredibly high budget. And then they cut to like a sketch on the back of a menu at some kid's restaurant. It looks ridiculous, but the comedy in that show is done fantastically well. So they do a really good job of mixing this, drama, this heavy story of Vanitas, this human vampire something, Curse of the Blue Moon, and also being a really funny show. I think I enjoyed this show maybe more than some others would, because I didn't mind how much Vanitas openly harassed people. I don't relate to being harassed as Vanitas does to some characters, and that is a very valid criticism of the show, is he does that a lot. He'll do that to a lot of characters, and for some people, that might make it really uncomfortable to watch. I didn't have that problem, but I could totally see that being a criticism of the show. And at some times, the pacing felt a little bit too slow. So I didn't give it a 10 like I gave 86. I think I gave it like a 7 or an 8. It's a very solid show. I would easily recommend it, but it's very much my thing, and I really enjoyed it. And for some people, it will very much not be their thing. And that's absolutely fair. I know Studio Gohan's does not have the best reputation, but earlier on in this year, I watched it was earlier this year, I believe, that I watched their one good series that they've made, K, and I was absolutely in love with it. I thought K was fantastic. I like their style of mixing 3D CG and 2D animation, and I think some of their fight scenes are done brilliantly well, and they do this really well in K, where they have mixings of fighting styles, and especially one character, Misaki, he mixes together his sword and his throwing knives, and it looks beautiful. Or is it Misaki? No, it's Fushimi. Fushimi does that. But Project Scarred just fell so flat on its face. It never really had a chance. I thought it could be good because I had just watched K, and I thought, this is great, and they're making another superpower show? Awesome. It was not awesome. It sucked. I loved it. But it sucked. The pacing was terrible. They would do the thing that animes, especially the more episodic animes or the lower budget ones that aren't rated too highly, they'll introduce a character and be like, ooh, look, these characters have a super long and storied history with them. And then by the end of the episode, this character that we're supposed to care about and respect is dead. And that just doesn't work. It doesn't look good. It doesn't capture the viewer in anything. It's just, oh, look, we don't know how to handle this character, so they're dead now. And Project Scarred was really, really heavily disappointing. I tried as much as I could to say, like, no, look, this show is good. And I just couldn't. While I was watching it week to week, early on in the year, in the winter season, I thought, maybe GoHands can recapture what they did with K, because K is actually pretty highly rated. And as each week went by, the hope just fell away. The show's not good. So, as much as I love it, and I love the opening song, and I like the style, and I like the inspiration, I like the power system of the tattoos, and I even really like some of the characters. Eiji Arashiba, easily one of my favorite characters. He's in my favorite characters list on Mal, because he's awesome. But they take these few good things, and that's really all they have, because everything around it is garbage.
Thank you. Anyways, here's the tier list. It lists every show that I watched this year. Feel free to look at it. Yeah, that's right. Hey, did you just skip here to the end? Well, you know what? Here you go. But yep, that wraps up this section of reviewing every single anime that I watched that came out this year. So, on to the awards.